Last episode, we already have envisioned the plan for our feudal Japanese city, and out of the three options, we have decided to go for the Sunken Valley concept, and I know it's an audacious and bold ambition to work on, but what else could we make in this world than to work on something challenging to build, right? But anyhow, so welcome back to the hardcore world, and of course, well, it's me, mikeyperion. So, from the last episode, well, we have built this, let me just look on our reference, Chikoshu Jimusho, or the builder's office. So basically, of course, this is like the planning department as what we have in the iCraft server. This is where we generate our ideas in order for us to work on our project for this season of the hardcore series. But anyhow, so well, I already have prepared the journal for our plan for this episode, specifically for this episode. So basically, the fundamental of this project is actually will go around, well, mostly about terraforming and layout. And of course, well, we are also going to build some structures in the future. But for now, for this episode, we are going to focus on terraforming and layout. But in terms of like the layout, of course, I already have, discussed that during the last episode. But for this layout, what I'm talking about is all about the elevation and of course fortification, which is very essential for Japanese castles. Well, of course, I will just gonna run through this very quickly. So for the terrain, of course, just to give it a descriptive plan. So basically what we wanted is to have a mountainous valley with sloping terrains, cliffs and natural stone pillars or monoliths, which is kind of similar to Tianzi in China, Tianzi Mountains in China. So, well, probably I'm gonna post a picture right now on how does it look like. So, yeah. So basically, of course, we're also gonna have some cliff walls, of course, since we're planning to have it like, very rugged terrain. So basically, of course, the cliff walls are going to be very important. So what we're planning to have is to have a dark tone or dark gray tone and mostly made of basalts and as well as some stones. And of course, it should be also well surrounded by lush forest with thick vegetation. So it's also going to be forest, similar to the picture that I posted earlier. And also, well, we also need to consider the rivers. So there will be 3 rivers flowing to the lake, which is going to be the lowest point of the terrain. Well, due to the cliff, of course, there will be waterfalls and rushing waters all around. So it's going to be very common. And then for the elevation, of course, this is going to be something technical. And of course, we have to plan this segment by segment or, district by district, probably. Of course, we're just going to determine that on what technique are we going to have for, planning out the elevations. And lastly, of course, we are also going to deal with fortifications for this episode, but not the actual wall. Shiru, also known as Japanese castle, surrounded by multiple layers of fortification mainly made of stones, and the base of the walls serve as retainer walls. So of course, later on, probably you're gonna have more idea on what we're planning to do here. And of course, on top of those, retainers wall, we are going to have those defensive. This is supposedly defensive. Mikey, you cannot spell. Defensive walls. Well, with arrow slits, so there are gonna be some holes for the arrow slits, or for because it's very common for for Japanese fortifications that they have those arrow slits, and as well as defensive towers. But anyhow, so of course, we're just gonna deal with those 3 fundamentals, which is first the terrain, and second thing is about elevation, and third is about the fortification. But anyhow, so without further ado, well, let's get this episode started. So a couple of things before we actually start our digging operation and as well as terraforming. So basically, first, we needed some of these foliages, some of these leaves. So we're currently farming these leaves for us to do some custom trees and as well as some custom bushes later. And as well as, probably it's also the best if we're going to have extra tools. Currently, we only have, of course, I think we only got like 3 pickaxes and as well as 2 shovels. So probably it's the best if we're going to add more pickaxe. We're just gonna go through some of the loots that we got from the end busting that we had. I think that was 3 episodes ago. So basically, of course, we are also going to upgrade those into netherite. Last thing, I think it's also necessary for us to have an additional beacon because, well, currently we only got one beacon right over there, and probably it's the best if we're going to have another one. Well, at least we can expand the scope of our beacon because, well, I have to say that we are going to do a lot of terraforming, but not for this episode. Of course, we are going to do this segment by segment, like I said. So probably for this episode, we are just going to work on the terraforming around these two structures. We are going to dig this down up to level 40. So at least this will look like something, you know, well elevated, something like that. And of course, on the sides, it will have some cliffs. And hopefully, well, I think we still got enough basalts, but just in case, we are also gonna try to gather more of those these basalts. Well, still a lot of things to do before we actually start the actual thing or the actual task that we have to work on for this episode. So these are the loot that we got from the end. So basically, well, let's just choose some of these pickaxes, and I think this one, yeah, we can have this, and this one, well, this is already complete though. Yeah, this is already efficiency 5 with silk touch, and this one, this has already got mending, but this one doesn't got mending, so probably we can buy a mending book from our villager. And I think one of the pickaxe should actually not be, should not have silk touch. So probably it's the best if we're also going to gather some more of those cobblestones because we're gonna need a lot of that in the future. But anyhow, so well, for diamond shovels, this will got fortune, we don't need fortune. And basically, I think we can just combine 2 of these shovels, so at least we can get efficiency 5. And well, we don't need silk touch for the diamond shovel. What we only need is actually mending. So well, basically we just need to buy 2 mending books from our villager, and there we have it. So we got these 3 tools, so now we just need to upgrade this to netherite tools. And of course, well, I think we still got some TNTs here. Yeah, well, hopefully we can get 12 ancient debris with these TNTs. And also, of course, second thing that we need to get into the nether are basalts. Well, this is still kind of plenty, but I think this is not enough though. Probably it's the best if we're going to gather some more of these basalts. And last thing is, of course, well, we also need to get some wither skelly heads because, well, like I said, we are also going to need another beacon. And well, let's prep up and let's go to the nether. Well, for the first time, I found something useful trade with these wandering traders. So basically, I think it's the best if we're also going to have some extra. No, I needed you. Well, at least we're just gonna need 3 more of these Untitled shells for us to have an extra. Well, my way should be here. They're blocking my door though. An extra conduit, right? But basically, yeah, we already got some extra tools, and as well as some extra basalts right over here, and as well as an extra beacon. But unfortunately, we cannot have an extra. Well, can we actually test that again? Oh, he loses one of his llama. But anyhow, can you please refresh your trade? we're just gonna try that later. But anyhow, so of course we are going to place this beacon somewhere. Should be 808 and then probably 151, something like that. Yeah, so basically well, of course, we are going to place this beacon underneath. Well, to be honest, what we're about to do is still makes me worried and a bit nervous because, well, I'm not sure if we're going to succeed on what we want to achieve for this episode. Well, the manner of executing this project is still pretty much unknown to me. Well, I can envision what we wanted to build, but still, I don't know how we are gonna go around on this particular terraforming project. But basically, what we needed is just to build and terraform. I know it may sound simple, but well, it's hard to do, should I say? Because, well, especially that this thing is very new to me. Although, well, there is actually one project which we have done before that is very similar to this one, which is the Biodome project, where we dug down to level 15, I think, if I can remember it correctly. But what we did there first is we dig down a massive hole, then we built the structure from bottom going up, right? And basically the structure is very geometrical and it's very easy to determine on how we are going to dig the hole because we can count the blocks, we can count it block by block. But this one, it's very organic because, well, we wanted to have a natural looking terrain, and also, well, we're not having any particular pattern or symmetry or any regular shape. Thus, well, it was a dilemma for me to think on how we are going to work on this. But I guess the best way to do it is just to modify that procedure. So instead of digging down straight then build a structure up, well, what we are going to do is just do something like dig a couple of layers, then terraform, then dig again, then terraform, then repeat the process until we reach the bottommost part of our land. So at least we can track on how we are going to take shape the terrain as it goes down, right? So yeah, I think it's a good idea. But I know it will definitely work. But the problem is if we're going to be efficient and be comfortable with this process, and also if it will give us some good results, or basically to meet our goal to make this particular mountainous terrain look amazing, right? So hopefully, well, everything will go well because, well, I should say that I'm still in a learning curve for this type of building project, and this is something that I wish to learn and discover if it is really impossible for me to do this, right? And now I guess we're ready. So the first thing that we have to do is, of course, to clear out these waters on this side. So probably we'll just gonna work up to that point right over there where we got that dirt line. Probably we're gonna work all up to this side right over here. Also up to that point, probably we're also going to clear out some of those trees on that side. And also for the meantime, probably we'll just gonna dig down up to that point right over there, up to that level, which is, I think that's level 55. And also, of course, first probably we'll just gonna make some sort of like slope on this section right over here, but I'm not sure. But yeah, so basically we'll just gonna determine that out later. And of course, we'll not gonna start yet the terraforming. Probably we'll just gonna do that after this time lapse. Of course, I know this is a lot of work, and of course we need to fast forward things for this episode. But anyhow, so well, let's do it. well, that's done, but yeah, actually that took me around 5 hours to dig this down. Well, the reason why we have dig out this massive area here is, of course, this is just a small portion of what we needed to dig for the entire project. So at least, well, bit by bit, we are just going to do, you know, a fair share of digging every episode. So at least we can accomplish this entire project. Well, we just made here a slant or a slope, well, for us to, well, just, I should say, it will be easier for us to contour or to mold this terrain into what we, you know, I mean, what we plan to do. So basically, well, what we're planning is to have some cliffs, and probably this area is going to be a plateau. Well, although we're still at level 55, but well, of course, some areas surrounding these areas are going to be like level 45, and probably this area right over here is already going to be part of the industrial district. So probably we'll also gonna dig this down up to level 45, but I'm not sure if we'll gonna be able to do that for this episode. But for now, our priority is actually to work on this side. But before we actually do that, of course, well, we still got some tools to repair. Of course, I'm gonna go to the ocean monument because, well, well, we almost have used all of our, well, tools, right? And of course, well, we'll just need to repair them. And also, if you guys wondering what are we going to do with all of these stones, and especially that we got like around 18 shulkers of regular stones in our storage. So basically, one thing that we can actually use for these stones is, first, we can sell those stones and turn them into emeralds. Probably we can also buy some of those quartz, and as well as some other stuff that we are going to need in the future, probably some terracottas, because I haven't found any. Well, I haven't found any mesobiome around. Well, I haven't yet explored the furthest, you know, distance around this map. But anyway, so, well, of course, well, basically we still got a lot of use for those stones, but most of them are gonna be sold to the masons, so at least we can buy some of those quartz, which probably we're gonna need a lot of that in the future. But anyhow, so, well, of course, I'm just gonna repair the tools, and of course, well, I'll be back. Well, I have to admit that I still don't have that much idea on how we can actually work on this particular terraform that we're about to do here. But for now, well, I just set up some of these templates or black palettes that we can actually use just to help us imagine on what we're trying to achieve here. So for the less slopey areas and as well as in flat areas, of course, we are going to use these grass blocks. On the vertical sections, we are going to use these basalt. So just to add more texture, we are just going to combine between the polished basalts and as well as the regular basalts. And for the retainer's wall, of course, we are just going to use these basalts, and just to add some more textures, probably we can also use some of these mossy cobblestones. And for the pathways, well, by just default, we are just going to use some of these cobblestones. But anyhow, so probably what I'm gonna do now is just to make some samples, just to, well, make sure that we're actually doing it right. So probably we're gonna work, of course, I think we need to connect this pathway here and also on the other side. So probably they'll meet up somewhere here. So that's one of my initial plan. And basically we're just gonna work on this one. Probably this is a less slopey area, so we're just gonna connect this, and probably on this area, this is going to be a more cliffy part, but I'm not sure on how to actually work on this one. So we're just gonna try to think of that later. And on this side, I'm still thinking if I'm also going to add some of those retainers wall, something like that. So I'm not sure because, well, I have to think that if we're going to connect this particular retainers wall down here, well, we already got these foliages, but we're just gonna see about that. So, well, of course, we're just gonna develop our ideas and as well as this terraforming later once we already got those samples. But anyhow, so, well, let's start working on this one. Well, I have to admit that, well, this took me quite a while to come up with this design, and I have to say that I really struggled doing this particular design for the cliff. But anyhow, so basically what I wanted to say now is to introduce you some of the elements that we are going to have in most of parts of the city, especially for these cliffs, and also as well as with this retainers wall, because like I said, well, we are going to have a very mountainous, or well, I think just mountainous valley that we are going to have here, and especially the terrains are going to be very rugged. So probably that's the best description that I could ever come up with in terms of like what we're planning to have in our sunken city for these major project that we have to deal here, right? But anyhow, so basically first element, we got those retainers walls, and second thing, this cliff, I should say this cliff is really important because, well, I'm really glad that I already have the idea on how to actually do these cliffs. Well, basically the technique that we are going to have is somewhat that, you know, as you can probably see, this formation is somewhat zigzag. Something like that, right? Well, I don't really have the proper description on how to explain what I did here. But as you can see, we got a zigzag formation on the sides, and I think that will create something like, you know, similar to the knife's edge in the mountains. And I think we'll also going to implement that in several parts and probably most of the parts of our cliffs. And last thing is, of course, this pathway, which is, well, I don't really have to emphasize in terms of like the design, but what I need to highlight is that, well, as you can see, most of the paths are actually going up or going down. It's basically inclined, right? So it's not a flat pathway. Most of the pathways that we are going to deal in our city are something like this. So it will be like staircases going up on the top of the hills or the mountains. So yeah, so at least we already have practice on how we are actually going to do this. So at least in the future, it will be much easier for us to do this type of, you know, pathways, right? But anyhow, so the last thing that we have to work on is, of course, well, probably I think this episode is already running out of time. So probably I'm just going to leave you guys a time lapse, well, just to finish up everything here. But what I need to highlight is what I'm planning to have in this particular corner right over here is basically, well, we are already going to start doing some fortifications. So one thing that we have to build here is actually a base of a tower, something like that, because, well, we got a dead end pathway on the top part right over there. So probably that pathway will lead on one of the defensive towers that we are going to build here probably on the next episode. So yeah, so watch out for that. And also for the next episode, we also need to, well, finish up digging down. Well, what you can actually see here are just half of the cliff. So basically we still need to extend this down further. And of course, well, we also need to finish up, well, doing some terraforming, and as well as probably we can also start digging out going to this direction, or I'm not sure yet if we're going to go to this direction or that direction, but we're just gonna see about that. But anyhow, so I guess, well, of course, I'm just gonna leave you guys the last time lapse that we have to deal for this episode. And anyway, so well, thank you for watching, guys, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Please leave a comment, please leave a like, and make sure to subscribe, of course, to me, to mikeyperion. And well, I'll see you guys again, well, next time.